We are here with Reverend Norma Edwards, and she had one of the earliest near-death experiences I've heard about. This was in the 1960s.
60s. Yeah. I was married, got married at 19, left my husband and I, and we went to England. The day started on a Monday morning. I'm not feeling quite well, and I've been off from work on sick leave, and I have to return even though I'm not feeling well that day. So had one child at the time, dressed him, dropped him off at the caretaker, and made my way into work. I got into work, and during the day, the pain I was experiencing in my stomach increased. And at about 4 o'clock, you're a woman, I'm looking at the time because I'm scheduled to get off work at 5. But around 4 o'clock, it dawned on me that the pain I was experiencing felt like labor pains. And I asked if I could be allowed to leave. So I left work, I entered the elevator, and there was one other person in the elevator. And she was a Hindu woman, and she was dressed in her Hindu outfit and the red dot on her forehead. And in those days, the elevators, they ended with a jerk, And when that elevator stopped with that jerk, all hell broke loose inside of me. I mean, pain, excruciating pain, and I collapsed. And the young lady, being very astute, she opened the elevator door and she cried for help. And since the hospital was like blocks away, she hailed a cab. And they got me into the cab and they got me to the hospital. Now, when I got to the hospital, the cab driver drove away with my handbag, and he brought it back the next day. But in my handbag was all my information, you see. So here is this poor young woman at an emergency room with me, and they say, well, what's her name? And she said her name is Norma. That's all she knew. Who is she? Where did she live? She knew nothing about me. The amazing thing was she stayed the entire night. And I was rushed into surgery. And at some point, I kind of regained semi-consciousness for a little while, and there are 2 doctors rushing with me on a trolley to get me into the operating room. And they said to me, you've got a dead fetus inside of you that has been poisoning the body. And then I pass out again. And the next thing I experience is I am feeling absolutely comfortable, blissful, no pain. All the pain is gone. And I am on the ceiling looking down at my body on an operating room. You talk about being crazed. I'm like, how can I be in 2 places at the same time? Because I'm watching the doctors, and it is very clear to me that they're really concerned that they got an emergency situation here. And I'm on the ceiling looking down, pain is gone, and I want to let them know that everything is all right. So I begin to think, how do I get off of this ceiling? And I guess that's the first lesson I learned, how powerful our thoughts are. As soon as I thought, how can I get off the ceiling? I was on the ground. And I'm running from one doctor to the other saying, hello, this is me. I don't understand what's happening here, but I'm okay. And then it occurred to me, they can't see me. So again, and this speaks to how well we can process when we're on the other side. The thought in my head now says, well, now there are 2 nurses here. Women are more intuitive. Maybe they'll be able to see me. So I rush over to the 2 nurses and I'm running between them and they can't see me either. And then I stop and I watch the equipment flatline. Now I knew what that meant because I had friends and family members who were nurses. And I'm like, this can't be right. The equipment must be malfunctioning. I gotta get out of here before they kill me accidentally. Because I watched the doctors pick up I call it the defibrillators, but
Yeah,
it
the
looked like
paddles,
paddles.
paddles.
Yeah, I call it paddles. I watched them pick up the paddles, and for some reason, I could see how much electricity it carried. And the thought in my head said, I got to get out of here. This equipment is malfunctioning, and they might very well kill me with all that electricity. And with that thought, I went straight out the roof. And now I'm in a very, very dark tunnel. And when I say dark, darker than anything you can imagine here. But the most amazing thing is I'm not afraid. And I'm traveling through this tunnel, it seems almost at the speed of lightning. And eventually I come around the corner. And when I come around the corner, I could see the exit to the tunnel. And at first, what I'm looking at is like, you know how we see rainbows and the arc and the rainbows and the colors, except there were more colors in that rainbow than I'd ever seen. And as I got closer, the kaleidoscope of light shifted. And now I'm looking at crystal clear white light. And the thought in my head now is, if I go through that light, I will probably damage the corona in my eyes because the light was so brilliant. And then I merged. And at that moment when I merge, there are no words, AJ, to describe the joy, the bliss, the love. I became love. In merging with the light, I became love. And the thought in my head again comes, how does one get around in this environment? And as soon as I ask that question, I'm moving. I'm moving again at the speed of light. And I come to an area where there is a huge television screen. Even today, we haven't built television screens that big. And I stop at the screen, and the light gets reflected onto the screen, and it begins to scroll. And I'm now watching on this screen the lifetime, the 26 years of life that I just left. And I could see childhood. I could see childhood experiences. When I was a child, I had a whole lot of questions about the Bible. I'd go to church on Sunday, and my mother would say, when you get there, close your eyes. Don't ask any questions, because invariably, I'd end up with questions. So I'm reviewing the 26 years of life that I have lived. And it was not at all judgmental. There was no judgment. I'm looking at it really with humor, with amusement, because the screen lit up and it divided into 3 sections. On the left-hand side was my life as I had planned it before I became embodied. In the middle column was my life as I lived it. And it kind of came up from birth to 3, from 3 to 9. And I'm looking at all these experiences, and it's like watching television. And then in the third column, there was a stamp that says, objective not accomplished. And then we go back to the left-hand side again. Now I'm looking at, let's say, maybe the period between 9 and 15. And I'm looking at all the experiences. And none of those experiences were bad. They weren't negative. It's just that that's not what I had planned. You see what I mean? And I'm observing it. And again, we come to the middle. And in the middle, I'm observing how I have lived it, what I was thinking, where my head was at. And then I come to the final column. And again, it looked as though someone had created a stamp. And the stamp said, objective not accomplished. Objective not accomplished. And now I am feeling very silly, because I'm thinking, how could I have been such a fool to have lived 26 years and not engaged the plan that I had made? So I'm now laughing now at myself and going, well, that was really silly, Norma. I mean, now what next? Now, as soon as I said that, the screen stopped moving. And the thought in my head at that point was a question that I could not get answered from any of the pastors in every church I went into. I had a question for the pastor. But the one that I could never get an answer for was this one. And Christ said, I came so you can have life and have it more abundantly. And then at 9 years of age, I'm saying to my parents and my grandparents, but Christ himself died. And everyone has been dying since. What did he mean by that? And that's when my mother made me to know, stop asking questions, because I was asking questions nobody could answer. And I'm standing there now, and this question reappears in my mind. What did Christ mean when he said that? And now I'm transported very quickly to now what looks like a Colosseum with those big pillars and a hugeness, as my granddaughter would say, the screen between the pillars. And it begins to scream, begins to scroll. And as it begins to scroll, I am watching the merge of the lifetime I just lived into 7 other lifetimes. And I'm watching now why it is that I chose certain experiences, what I was supposed to learn from it, and what I didn't learn from it because I did not follow the plan. The very first lifetime that came up on the screen, and it comes up on the screen, and then at a certain point, I watched the merge with the lifetime that I left. And the very first one was it was way back in some century back there, when for some reason there wasn't light on the planet Earth, and everybody walked around with torches. Very ancient. And we were being transported, a number of us, women and children. We were walking through a cave. And when we got out of the cave, we were on the seashore. And there was war in this community. One community was warring with the other. But when I say war, not with guns, but rather with very ancient tools. And they had gathered us 23 women, and I think it was 10 children, and got us to the ocean. When we got there, we realized there were these boats there, and there were other groups. And what they did was put women and children in these boats with whatever food they had and push the boats out to sea in the hope, since they were losing the war, that we would survive and be able to revitalize the community, you see. The boat I was in, there were 23 women and 10 children. The boat capsized. And one of the things I learned from there is that fear, I was still carrying the fear, because you're standing there and you're looking at this scrolling going on, but you also have the feelings. You could feel the scramble for breath. You could feel the scramble. I mean, you can experience it. And we all died.
Was this in prehistoric times?
Yes.
Okay.
We all died, but I'm left with this, I'm just observing, I'm left with the fear, the actual fear of what it felt like to be a child drowning in the ocean. And then the screen moves, the screen moved, and when we move now again, I'm in prehistoric time, but I'm a male and I'm a warrior. And we're at war. And I'm a warrior, and I'm feeling what it feels like to kill or be killed. You don't have time to stop and wonder about whether what you're doing is right or wrong. It's either they kill you or you kill them. So I kind of like got away from there, understanding that you know, it's easy to kind of point fingers, well, you should not go kill people. But when it's my life or yours, it's a different story. So I experienced that. And then from there now, I moved, the screen started moving again. And from there again, fear. I'm walking away with fear. And from that scene now, I moved, so it gets a little bit more of modern times, if you would call it that, because I am I'm watching Moses being pulled out of the bulrushes. And I'm one of the women at the waterside.
Wow, amazing.
And the fear in our hearts that we have no business. Jews have nothing to do with the Samaritans. Now, it was very interesting because my mother repeated that statement a lot when I was growing up. The Jews have no dealings with the Samaritans. And here am I looking at what that meant. Jews have no dealings with the Samaritans. You don't rescue no Jewish child. Why are you rescuing? You see what I'm saying? And there's all this fear, again, fear of what the outcome of rescuing this baby could mean to us as women. Because as women, we have no rights, really. So then I experienced that, and then I moved from there to Paul. First of all, no, before that, I moved to the crucifixion. I'm there, and Paul is there.
Who was there? Paul.
Paul witnessed the crucifixion. I don't know why it's not in the Bible. He was there to make sure that it happened. So I'm there, and I'm observing Paul. I'm observing Paul very closely. It's like my attention is not even so much on the crucifixion; it's on Paul. Okay, and the whole of his being is he needs to be there to make sure that what needs to be done gets done. So when this is over, they're not going to take a living man off of that cross. It's going to be a dead man. But my attention is on Paul. And then the next place I find myself now is Paul being knocked off of a horse. You know, he could not speak and what have you, and kind of like following him. It's like I was following him, observing what he was experiencing until he began the whole thing of bringing people to Christ. And then I leave there now, and the next experience is I'm a child with my mother in the cotton fields of where I live now. And we're picking cotton. And it's in rows. And I can hear in the row before us, I can hear the hooves of the horses. I can also hear the sound of the whip when it hits the back of the slave. And I know as a child that that happens because the slave cannot keep up with their the portion that they need to accomplish. And there's absolute terrifying fear inside of me because I'm a child. I cannot make that, I can't make the allotment. And I know that when the master man horse come around, I will feel that whip on my back. And then I jumped from there. I'm jumped from there.
Okay.
To the
this
next
was in Guyana?
This was in South Carolina, where I live now.
Oh, okay. South Carolina.
South Carolina, okay. Where I live now.
Please continue.
And it's spirit that brought me to South Carolina. And then suddenly now the scene changes, and I'm in the next lifetime. And I am the white master man on the horse, wielding that whip. You got to stop the nonsense about who's guilty and who's not. We really do.
Wow.
And that was the end of my time at the Akashic record. See, at the time, I did not know I was at the Akashic record. The Akashic record is a record that stores everything that has ever happened in the history of the worlds. I did not know that I was at the Akashic record. Much, much later, I got that information in a download after I came back, that that's where I had been taken. So now I'm like, oh my God, How can you see, I started off the journey, how could I be in two places at the same time? Now I'm really confused. How can I be in different pieces of history and watching it at the same time? So the screen closes, and I ask the question, what next? And again, I'm moving again like the speed of lightning. My feet doesn't touch the ground. I'm just moving, and I come to a river. You know, where we sing in the Christian tradition, yes, we will gather at the river, the beautiful river. Gather with the saints at the river. I went to the river. And on the other side, the other bank of the river, I was 300 and something souls standing there greeting me. And you talk about love. I have no words to describe that level of love. And they were just beaming love to me with hands outstretched, and they're just beaming, and I'm experiencing and feeling this love. And I know that I know each and every one of them, that I've even lived with them in a lifetime before. I've interacted with them in a lifetime, and they have come to welcome me. And then my aunt, who was the last person to have died in my lifetime, and I was very close to my aunt. If you read the book, my mother and my aunt raised me. And she started to step forth in the water to come towards me. And I began to do the same thing. So we're wading in the water, coming to greet each other. And I'm so excited because I'm so full of all this beautiful, amazing love. And just as she gets close enough to touch me, she steps back and she says, I'm so sorry. They're not allowing you to say. And I say, why? And she says, well, no, they're sending you back with a message. And I said, well, hello, there are millions of people back there. I'm sure they could find someone. They seem to be able to do magic here. I'm sure they can find someone back there and give them the message. And she said, no, they're sending you back with the message. There is more to life than meets the eye. Life is eternal. And with that, I found myself moving at the speed of light. And I'm moving in this light and this beautiful love. And then I got slammed into my physical body, lying in a hospital bed. And I was not a happy camper. Not at all. It seems as though I was four. You see, when we're traveling in our spirit, it's huge. Spirit is huge. It's a huge collection of energy. When you take that huge collection of energy, you try to slam it into that body, I'm telling you, that was painful, anesthesia or not. It was a horrible experience to move from this crescendo of beautiful love and light to be rammed into a body. And I was not happy at all. And the journey of readjustment began. So now I am in a little room, and there's two nurses that are sitting there at the table, and I guess they're observing me, you know, after the operation. And I've got all these tubes in and out of me, and it's two young women are sitting. It's late at night. They're sitting at this table, and it seems as though they're friends. They're nurses, and they both belong to the same church. Now, I had my near-death experience on a Monday. And on a Sunday, one of them went to church because she was off, and the other one had to work. So the one who went to church is now summarizing the sermon, the Sunday sermon, to her friend. And the sermon had a lot to do with hell. And I'm lying in this bed and I'm like, what in the world? I can't believe that a pastor would get on a pulpit and preach about hell. There is no hell. But I can't speak because I've got tubes in my throat, you see. So I'm frustrated. And she's explaining this, and I'm going, but that's not true. That's not the way the word is. And then suddenly dawned on me, wait a minute, Norma. You woke up this morning and you believed that crap. What happened to you that now, not only do I believe it, but I'm willing to rip all this stuff out of my throat so I can defend it? And I'm like, wow, what happened? What happened, Norma? Now, two male, and of course I tell myself, well, maybe it's because they're females. You see what I'm saying? So two male, I don't know, they had on white coats. I don't know if they were doctors or whatever. They come walking along the corridor and they stop to talk to these two young ladies, you see. And I'm like, but they believe the same thing. How could that be? You see, the transformation, it's almost like they lift what you have in your memory bank. They transformed and they put it back in. And now I'm thinking, oh my God, they're two men and they believe it too. So after I finished describing the sermon, they turned on a little transistor radio they had on the table. Now I'm about to be really confused. The radio had classical music coming out of it. Only now I could see the notes. Every note has a color. Every color is tied to a mathematical symbol. And I'm just in awe. And I'm watching them breathe this information in, and I'm watching how the colors are affecting the interior of their bodies. And I'm thinking, what in the world has happened to me? So finally, I got strength enough and they put me in a ward. In those days, they put you in a ward with 8 or 10 people with beds. And it's like 2 o'clock in the morning and I really need some sleep here. And when they reel me in, there's a woman in the bed and she's crying out. Oh my God, she thinks she's going to die. And she's crying out for her mother. She's crying out for Jesus. She's crying out for Mother Mary. And she's just keeping everybody awake. And I wanted to sleep. So I pushed myself up on my elbows and I said, ma'am, you have 10 more years to live. You're not going to die.
How did you know that?
I asked myself, well, how did I know that? Because you see, a whole file has opened up inside of me. But she took me seriously. She went to sleep and we got some sleep. So then one of the nurses came and asked, how did I know that? I said, well, it was just there to know. Didn't you know it? Because now I have to adjust to this amazing transformation that has taken place inside of my life. So it was just very confusing. The day my husband came to take me home, as we stepped out of the hospital, it was winter. And so the trees had no leaves. But I stepped out and I'm standing there and I'm watching the activity going on in the trunk, inside of the trunk of the trees, how it's pulling the energy up from the earth and bringing it all the way up to the top to disperse it into the universe. And I'm standing there with my mouth open like, how come I never saw this before? It was quite an experience. And I entered the physical world now with very heightened senses. The 5 senses got extremely heightened. I could see spirits. I could see into the human body. That was really something. And I wanted to scream at people, you have a tumor in there and you need. As a matter of fact, there was one nurse in the hospital who I could see the tumor inside of her. And I thought, you're running around here trying to get people well, and you're not aware that you have a tumor, because I could see it, you see. So the journey began, and one of the things that we now, as soon as I walk under a bulb, it will blow, because my frequency has gotten to a place. So we're buying light bulbs by the dozen. It was very confusing, very exciting some of the time. And then the day when I had to return to the hospital, you have to return for a checkup. We got to the hospital, my husband and I, and we stopped at the crossing, you know what I mean, to cross the street. And a car comes around, and the woman standing in front of me, I've never been able to figure out whether she willfully stepped into the field of the car so that she got hit, or whether or not she collapsed. But the next thing I know, she's down on the ground. And she's down on the ground, and I'm watching her spiritual body leaving the physical body. And I'm directing to her, so now you get there. That was what you call my very first crossing with somebody. I said, now when you get there, you're going to go through a tunnel. Do not be. Now people are looking at me like I'm crazy, you know. Of course, everybody has kind of rushed to her attention on the ground, but I'm not. I'm standing there and I'm talking and I'm saying to her, now you're going to go through a tunnel. It's going to be all right. After the tunnel, you're going to go through the light. You're going to get into the light. When you get to the light, you're okay. And then I look around and people are looking at me like I'm nuts. And I think that was the moment when I decided I'm going to keep my mouth shut. Walked her right out into the light. And my husband at the time, who's now my ex-husband, he couldn't handle it at all. And I think when he began to say to me, what did they do to you in that hospital? Maybe they gave you the wrong medication. Maybe he was looking for physical reasons why I had changed to the point that I had. See what I'm saying? And finding my life purpose took me into prisons to work with men in prisons who needed their lives readjusting, many of whom were addicts, and to freedom of addiction. Once I got into what my purpose for life was, it wasn't as chaotic. You see what I'm saying? Because now all of that kind of got drawn together and I could focus it on my life's purpose. It was quite interesting, but it took 8 spiritual teachers. And it did not come, I did not seek them out, they sought me.
Were they from different religions, or were they all Christian?
Oh yes, I studied the Buddhist religion very deeply to be able to understand what was happening with me. Christianity doesn't have all the answers, but that's because they don't want all the answers. They kind of like where they are. I say it's the beginning stages of your spiritual journey.
What is your present belief regarding religion and spirituality? What would you say?
Religion is, you know, when you start your education, they send you to kindergarten. You know that if you want to become a doctor, you're going to have to get out of kindergarten. You're going to have to learn a whole lot of stuff before they give you that doctorate. Am I explaining it well? And yes, you got to start at the beginning.
What about
I am still a Christian. I want to say this too. I am still a Christian.
Okay.
I am an ordained, as a matter of fact, I'm an ordained minister. I'm also an ordained priest. I am still a Christian because kids still need to go to kindergarten to learn what they have to learn before they can become a doctor or a scientist.
Right.
You can't close down kindergarten or first grade and expect that they're going to excel.
So you saw Jesus. What did Jesus look like? Was he similar to how people depict him?
No, it's not.
Okay.
No, it's not. No, it's not. We depict it based on our belief system and our consciousness everywhere we are consciously. See what I'm saying? But no, it's not. And
Because
I
depict
don't
him like a European, you know.
Let's put it this way. If you were born and raised in an area where the temperature is in 100 degrees, what do you think you'd look like?
Right. Dark-skinned and not blue eyes, and, you know, certain traits that the commercial Jesus does not have, you know.
You see, it's not only the commercial Jesus. We need to understand that And we have the same ability, except we're not pursuing developing it. When you get to a certain level of energetic level, you can manifest however you want to manifest so that people can get it. It's no different than me manifesting in this lifetime as Black. But in a lifetime before, I was not Black. You see what I'm saying? So there may be no doubt that Christ, during his time on the earth, chose to manifest in places where it was the best for him to be accepted. It's like, think of God. We think of God, some people think of God as a man, some people think of God in many, many ways, don't we? But when God wanted to talk to Moses, how did he manifest? It was a burning bush. So we get all hung up in this lifetime. I am Norma, I'm a woman, I am Black. I come from South America. That's important in America, in the life that we're living now. It doesn't have any importance over there. And let me blow your mind now. As Norma, I'm talking to you here now as Norma. I'm also simultaneously doing some work on the 8th dimension with music. It's part of me that's doing that right now. There's a part of me that is on the 7th dimension, helping someone to get through that barrier. We are multidimensional beings. When we're here, we're in school. Think about your life. When you went to college, college was not the only thing you were doing. You were going home to go get your mother's cooking or your grandmother's cooking. You were going to football games. You weren't in the classroom all the time. Make sense? We're multidimensional beings.
Yes, interesting.
And we're manifesting all of the time. So what I'm teaching people now, I also carry casts, is what I'm teaching people now. I don't tell you how to live your spiritual life, but I just give hints from my own life on how to develop the discipline, how to expand the frequency of the energy. And then from there, what I'm watching is some of my students are doing even more on this planet than I can ever do. And that's a blessing.
Well, you are a blessing. Thank you for coming. I will include the links in the description of the book and also of your monthly meeting.
Yes, it's
Thanks
a circle, and it's the second Saturday in every month. And they can contact me on my email. My email is reprogramyourlife. One word, reprogramyourlife@yahoo.com. And all they need to do is send me an email. And once they send me an email, I'll send the link. And it's absolutely free of charge.
Well, great. I will include the email and also the link to your book. Okay?
Please, yes.
Thanks a lot, Norma. Once again, it's been a pleasure.
This has been the A.J. Parr Spiritual Journalist Podcast. Please like, share, and subscribe.